If you do have a question or comment, we encourage you to type it in the chat, which we'll be checking periodically throughout the meeting. There is also a session, the final session, in which we're going to invite you to raise your hand to make an intervention. This is an innovation, so we're going to see how it goes. You may raise your hand by clicking on the reactions area, and there is an icon there that will show a little hand. And if you click on that, then we'll see your hand raised and we'll try to call on you as best we can. Another final point is that this session is being recorded, and that recording, as well as all of the presentations, will be made available on the Washington Group website after the meeting. So without further ado, I hand the floor to Jennifer for the opening remarks and Washington Group Secretariat updates. Jennifer, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Heidi. And if I can just get the next slide. So let me also welcome you to this first mid-year meeting of the Washington Group. This is something that kind of came out of our annual meeting last year while we were struggling a little bit with the restrictions of COVID, and that we weren't able to meet in person, which I think we would all really want to do at some point. We also wanted to take advantage of some of these kind of unanticipated opportunities that working virtually was presenting, and to have more virtual meetings. It does allow for more people to be involved. You don't have to travel. And so this mid-year meeting was one of those opportunities. But as you note, and as Heidi noted, there are now two schedules. So while yes, we have more people attending, we don't have a session where everyone is at the same meeting because of all the time zones that we're in. So no one has to stay up all night. We've decided to break it up, as we did with the annual meeting, into schedule 1, schedule 2. People could pick which one they wanted to go to, but there are real downsides of this, as well as being able to everyone sleep through the night. So we would like to hear your input and reactions to that. Is it better to do the schedule 1, schedule 2 so that we're more reasonable in terms of timing, or should we go back to just a single, try to maximize the number of people where timing is good so that everyone's on the same call? So something to think about as we move through the meeting. So I'm going to just, as we normally do, an opening session. Julie, if I can get the next move two slides.
So I, yeah, hold on. I was unable to advance the slides. That's the problem. Hold on.
Oh, I see. Okay. I think I would remember what's on the slide. I do remember. Okay, so as we normally do when we end an annual meeting, we always have some kind of marching orders for the year to come, and last year was no difference. When you get great, thanks, Heidi. So there were certain things that came out of our annual meeting last year, and we will be hearing about it all, if not most of these today. But I just wanted to give you a quick run through of what has happened in the time between the last annual meeting and now. There was approval to finalize the analytic guidance documents, and those included the severity indicators that Mitch was working on, and also developed syntax for the various different analytic softwares. And as you'll hear, both of those have been accomplished. It's a good thing. We have ongoing work on refining the website. We've gotten very good feedback about the website from a range of users. It's much easier to use. They can find things. It's well organized. That was really, really good to hear. But we are still getting comments. We have found, some links get broken. Things are going to places they shouldn't go to. And so there's an ongoing effort to address those. So if you find something on the website, please, there's still time. We do still have the contract with the developer of the website for a couple of years. So if anything goes wrong, he can fix it. So if you see anything, please let us know. Also ongoing is the work towards getting out more analytic products. we had talked about developing a standard template. And one of the issues that came up at the last meeting was how does age adjustment factor into that? And that is ongoing work, and also work that some preliminary work that the Secretariat has done that we'll be presenting on today. And of course, the work groups and also the regional disability statistics groups. There's ongoing work on all of those that you'll hear about, as we'll have reports from the leaders of those groups. And kind of going back to those standard templates, we are still looking for countries who are willing to replicate the analysis to see if we can get a kind of a critical mass of countries so we can put those websites, those reports up on the website as a data source. Next slide. Okay, so working off of last year's meeting, our meeting objectives for today's meeting, to share updates from the annual meeting, which I will do after this. Then we will discuss the dissemination tools as it relates to age adjustment. The idea was perhaps to have a webinar on age adjustment. We decided to move that to the mid-year meeting with the intent of creating a subgroup that will come up with some kind of best practices. And we'll get work updates from the work groups. And very important, and Heidi mentioned this, is we want to discuss the plans and the format for the 21st annual meeting, which will be held next fall. And we really want as much input from membership as we can get on the content and the format for that meeting. Next, please. So just an update on what the steering committee has been doing since the last meeting. One of the main activities was decide to hold this mid-year meeting and to work with the Secretariat in terms of developing the agenda. So I thank the steering committee for their work on that. They also made the decision that given where we were when a decision had to be made, that we would hold the 2021 annual meeting virtually. There's a lot of startup time needed to run an in-person meeting, and we just didn't feel like the situation was stable enough to be able to do that. So the 2021 annual meeting will be virtual, but the Kenyan National Bureau of Statistics is still willing to host our next in-person meeting, and we are still considering perhaps having that sooner than a year from the fall, maybe next spring if things get better, and we have the resources to pull that off. So that's still something that needs to be further discussion. The steering committee also made some modifications to the governance document, which I think all members have received. There had been no mention of the regional disability groups in that. That document was written a long time ago and lots has changed. So text was added about the regional disability groups. We added an option for having a vice chair position to assist the chair and to think about moving forward. The steering committee membership was extended to include the regional group leaders. Remember that the membership is the work group chairs, the past, current, and future hosts of the meeting. Now we'll have the regional group chairs, and there were also regional area reps. Now there's many different ways that a country or a person can serve on the steering committee, and a decision was made by the steering committee that we would opt to having as many different people serve as possible. So if someone is on a work group and also on a regional group, they should serve in one of those capacities and have a colleague serve in the other, and that would increase the range. And we also welcomed a new regional area member, Raiza, from a representative for Asia and the Pacific. Next, please. The Secretariat also has some news. As you heard, they had the staffing update. You've met Heidi. She joined us very soon, as she said, after the annual meeting, and has been wonderful asset to the Secretariat. At the same time, Cordell, who you see on this call, decided that he wanted to learn more about data science. And so he has taken a little time off to go back to school and to work in that area, but he is on break right now, so he can join us for this meeting. I think we're going to plan all of our meetings around when Cordell is on break. We miss him, but he has still stayed involved and he will come back. And we told him recently that he's going to have to do a webinar on data science and disability when he's finished with these extra studies. You know that Mitch had retired from NCHS a year or so ago, but is still SAVE active, and I have followed him. I left my position at NCHS in December, but I've stayed on with the Washington group. It's still one of my favorite activities, and I'm willing to serve as chair for as long as you guys need me, but we are thinking about some succession. In terms of support, we announced last time that our grant that we had since 2015 from DFAT in Australia ended, and we were not able to get a renewal of that. There's been some changes in DFAT in terms of the amount of money they have, although we haven't given up on trying to get more funding from them. But the main impact of that lately has been, as you can see in this meeting, we do not have the resources to do translation. And I think that's probably the most serious impact, that, you know, people are limited to their ability to participate because of language, and don't think that that's a good thing. But all of that translation support was coming from DFAT. And of course, they provided a lot of other assistance in terms of the website, and also to facilitate the in-person meetings, as well as provide support for running these virtual meetings, which can get a little complicated when this is not what you know how to do best. So please be patient when things don't go exactly as planned. But we were very happy to have been contacted by the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development in Germany, BMZ, and their partner GIZ, who were interested in supporting our regional disability groups in Africa, both the Brazzaville group and the newly formed South and East Africa group, named to be developed. And while we haven't finalized that agreement quite yet, they were gracious enough to allow us to announce it. It's around a 6-month agreement. It will be administered by UCL as the DFAT, excuse me, the DFAT agreement had been, and we're very, very excited about that. And we think it might be a good model for trying to get other kinds of support through the regional groups where we can find some kind of donor who's particularly interested in that group. So we're kind of looking for those opportunities and working with some of the regional groups to get additional funding for those groups. But we are very, very grateful for the BMZ support and having a new partner. That's always very exciting. Next slide, please. Now, the next couple of slides are very busy and have a lot of information on them, and I'm not going to go through them for the interest of time, and you will have them. But we just wanted to give you an idea of what happens in between meetings, particularly on behalf of your secretariat, which is kind of the interaction between the World and the Washington group. So meetings here, this is just a list of some of the meetings which actually in these days are calls or kind of some kind of virtual meeting. These are requests that come in through the mailbox. Some of these can be answered very quickly by sending people to the website, and that's been extremely helpful, being able to do that. Sometimes a little email exchange answers the question. Sometimes we have a phone call. Actually, often we have a phone call to find out what the requester wants. And sometimes these will turn into bigger collaborations. For example, the BMZ support actually came from a request that we got through the box. Many of the folks on this list are normal partners, development organizations, NSOs, UN agencies, but there have been some new ones that I just wanted to point out because they're quite interesting to us. We recently had a call with the American Bar Association Rule of Law Initiative, which is interested in disability data in the MENA region. And also interest in the MENA region is the National Democratic Institute, which is an NGO, nonpartisan NGO that's interested in supporting democratic institutions. So these are partners that really are very new, very good to see. And they all came to the Washington group because they had heard about it from others. So word is getting around, but it's positive word, which I think is nice, that people are saying good things so that others are getting in touch. So this just a list of some of the interactions we've had. On the next slide, we have some of the specific technical assistance that's been provided to some of the NSOs. Sometimes it's, reviewing some documents or providing input on a survey. And then there are the conference, seminar, workshop participation activities. Sometimes this is just going, to a meeting, showing that the Washington group is interested, like the Conference of State Parties. Sometimes it involves being part of some kind of presentation. So the World Data Forum had a side event that we talked about some of the work we had done on the COVID-19, some things on inclusive education. There's just a whole range of them. And one where we just attended was the UN Statistical Commission. We were not on the agenda this time. We attend the GLAAD meetings. So we are trying as part of the Secretariat to kind of keep the word out there that this resource exists, that people are working in this area. And on all of these things, whenever possible, we will pass on the request or the contact to the country or to the regional working group. Next slide, please. One interesting thing, and this is just a list of the requests we've gotten for translations, and yet again, a very wide range of interest. It has really helped that we were able to put on the website that little tool that tells users when we have a translation. It's not the quote unquote official translation. Those you can get straight off the website. But where a partner or someone else has done a translation, we have not evaluated it, but we will make it available. So responding to these kinds of requests for translations has become much, much easier. Also, as people take the translations, might look at them, or if we don't have a translation, they create one. It really has helped us kind of stay in touch with different users who have developed translations. So that's also been quite useful, I think, and again, good from a website perspective. Next slide, please. So our agenda today, we have this opening session. We've done that. Done. And then we'll move into a session on age adjustment. Remember, this is a technical session. It is meant as a precursor to other work that we hope some of the members will take on, and that'll come right after this. Then we will have the work group updates and the regional disability statistics group updates. There are a lot of these groups. We had to ask them, the Secretariat had to ask them to keep their remarks short so that we could get through them in the allotted time. But part of the reason for doing this is for members who are not involved in these groups but want to be, can see what's happening and maybe get involved. I know the groups are always looking for new members. And so that's part, in addition to having the entire membership know what work is going on, we would like to increase participation. And then finally, as Heidi said, an open discussion on plans for the 2021 annual meeting. And there we hope to get a lot of input. So if we can get the next slide. And I'll just briefly stop here if anyone has any questions that they want to ask. I have not been looking at the chat, so I don't know if, I saw kind of in the corner of my eye some greetings and things, but I don't know if there are any questions in there that anyone had or something that I can answer before we move into age adjustment.
Jennifer, this is Julie. There was one question in the chat about translation. This is from Rajan. Rajan says translation issue in the presentation is confusing. Translation of what?
Sorry. So yeah, you're right, Rajan. I'm sorry. There were two different kinds of issues I talked about. One was providing interpretation services for our meetings, and I should use the word interpretation, not translation, which we are not able to do. If you remember, for the annual meeting, we had professional interpreters and sign language interpreters who participated in the meeting. And we were not able to do that for the mid-year meeting because we don't have the funds for that. The other translation is we get a request that says, do you have the Washington Group short set translated into, pick a language, Italian or something else. Some of these are languages that are very regional or not spoken by a lot of people. Others are translations that we have. So it is generally for translation of either the short set, the extended set, the child functioning module, which we can get from UNICEF, and less often for the resource documents, although that does happen. The resource documents, basically the ones we have not moved to do any more on that, but we are trying to the best that we can to develop as many translations of the question sets as we can. And so one other thing we were thinking of is if we get a translation that someone else has done, but in a language that a member speaks, then we would ask them to review it to see if there was any problems with it. So I'm sorry for that confusion, Rajan. I hope that answered it. Great.
There are no other questions.
Okay, wonderful. Then let's move on to the age adjustment session. And I will apologize at the beginning. Some of you may find this very, very basic, way too basic that we could have done this in 5 minutes, but we've gotten enough questions about this that I thought it was good, at least at this point in time, to kind of start at the beginning, outline what the issues are, and then hand it off, and you'll see that again, to another group to come up with best practices. So the intent here was not to really make decisions. Of course, we can, but the intent was really to just lay the groundwork, and we will do it in a very basic way. In terms of questions, if there's really something that's not clear, then please put it in the chat, and someone can interrupt me and I can answer it. But we can have some discussion afterwards. So can I have the next slide, Julie or Heidi? Thanks. So the question has always been to age adjust or not to age adjust. And there is no simple answer to that. It depends. So the issue is, well, what does it depend on? Next one, please. And just to kind of refresh your memory, on the right hand of this slide, you see the template that Julie developed if we wanted to do some consistent reporting. And as part of that template, there was a figure that gave prevalence estimates for the domain specific, I think. There were age-specific prevalence estimates as well, but these were for the more total population. And the question was raised, should those be age adjusted? Even though each one of these reports will be country specific, there'll be one for each country, they will be in a place on the website that says, oh, they're all together, they all look alike. You have then the ability to kind of go across them and do comparison. So again, the session is to provide the background information, and we would like to get a small group set up. So think about that to develop best practices. Next slide. So here's kind of the basic stuff. I wanted to talk a little bit about what is a rate. And I am using the word rate here interchangeably with percent and proportion. There are technical differences in what a rate is, but for this purpose, we're just going to kind of include them all the same and basically think about a percentage. The simple way we normally think of a rate is we have a population, we have a data set, and the number of people in the data set that have this characteristic, and we divide it by the total number of people in the data set. So if we were interested in the prevalence of disability in a country, how many people in the country respond a lot or unable to the Washington Group questions, and divide it by the total population, and you get your rate. But that rate can be thought of in a more complicated way. Any population can be divided into components, for example, age groups. And you can also think of the rate as being constructed as the sum of those component specific rates multiplied by the distribution of the population in that component. So on the bottom of the slide, you kind of see this written out. And I just want to say that for this way we're talking about it here, that the distribution on that component is coming from the same data set that we're getting the prevalence rates from, the age specific rates from. So we take the rate for component 1, let's say that's young people, and we multiply it by the proportion of the population that's young. We take the rate for component 2, let's say that's young adults, and we multiply it by the proportion of the population that's young adults, and so on until we get through all the components. And once we get all of those products, we add them up and we get the rate, and arithmetically we'll get the same rate we got when we did it the simple way. Okay, so just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Next slide. So what's a crude rate? You hear about that. The crude rate, often we think of as just that simple rate. We take the number in the number with the characteristic, we divide it by the population. But it's also the sum of the component specific rates times the distribution for that same population that you're getting the rates from, right? So if you're getting it from a census, you're getting the distribution of the population by the components from the census and also the component specific rates from the census. They're coming from the same data source. When we use an adjusted or a standardized rate, we're using the same set of component specific rates, but we're multiplying them by a component distribution, the age distribution, from a different population. And it can be any population. It can be a population that doesn't exist. It's just some distribution by that component. And when you do that, when you use a different distribution, you will get a rate that's standardized or adjusted to that distribution, not the distribution that is in that population, the same population. I hope that's clear. Okay, next slide. So why would you use an adjusted rate as opposed to the crude rate? So one thing I think is important that everyone kind of think about is that adjusted rates are not real. They do not reflect the situation in the population. The crude rate does that. The adjusted rate, the actual value of the adjusted rate is a function of what the distribution is. Which standard, which other population did you pick when we created the standardized rate? So when would you use an adjusted or standardized rate? You tend to use them when you're doing comparisons. These can be comparisons across time. For example, within a country, you want to look at a trend over X number of years. You want to compare different groups in the population. You want to compare males versus females, or you want to compare across populations. So you want to compare population in Europe to one in Asia, to one in Africa, to one in North America. It's primarily used for comparisons. But I think what's important is that comparison, what you're interested in terms of the comparison, is not affected by that underlying composition of the population. For example, the age distribution. Okay, so I'm not interested in the impact of that age distribution on my comparison. I'm really interested in comparisons net of that. And often you'll use the age adjusted rate or the any adjusted rate when you need a summary indicator, when you can't look at all of the specific rates, like all the age specific rates. That could get very busy, would take a lot of space and harder to kind of understand. And there are some technical issues also. You don't want to use an adjusted rate for populations where the relationship between the age, the specific rates and the composition vary. So if something goes up with age in one population and down with age in another population, age adjustment will not show that, and it's not something you want to do. That's very rare when you deal with age, but it does happen. Next one, please. Okay, so then the question is, if I'm going to use an age-adjusted rate when I'm interested in a comparison, but only comparisons where the composition of the population isn't of interest, when is that? And I'm going to just illustrate that by use of examples. So most demographic and most health-related characteristics will vary by age. So age is the most common kind of adjustment we might use. So one we were interested in, we're going to use that as the example here. So the decision, again, whether to use a accrued or an age-adjusted rate is a function of the intended use of that estimate. And I'm going to give you two examples of how that would be and how you'd make the decision. So my first example, I've been asked by a group of planners. They want an estimate of the number of people with vision difficulties in urban and rural areas because they want to determine the need for services. Okay, so that's example one. In example two, I've been asked by researchers because they want estimates of vision difficulties in urban and rural areas because they want to see if exposure to some kind of irritant in a particular area results in vision difficulties. Is it a determinant of vision difficulties? Okay, so I have two different examples and they're going to illustrate when you might use one rate versus the other. Next one, please. Okay, so we know vision difficulties are age related, and we know in the population we're looking at is that the population in rural areas is older, and that is common in a lot of countries. So in example one is really asking for estimates of what is often called burden, which is given by the accrued rate. Okay, I want to know how many services to provide, so it really doesn't matter to me what the age distribution is. I just need to know how many services to get. The fact that the population is older in rural areas translates into greater burden in that area and the need for more services, and that's what I'm interested in. I want to know about the need for services. I'm using something as a proxy for that, maybe difficulty seeing, and I would use accrued rate. My example two, though, I'm really interested in called risk, and that risk is often given by the adjusted rate. So my researchers, their hypothesis is that the risk of vision difficulty is related to these irritants in the urban areas. But I actually have higher observed rates in rural areas. Accrued rates are higher in rural areas. And that's a function of the age of that population, not the exposure. And I'm interested in exposure. So in this example, the age distribution of the population doesn't affect the comparison of risk due to exposure, unless there's an interaction, but we're not going to go there right now. And if there's an interaction, then all of this goes away. And so if there is no interaction and it doesn't affect it, then it's not of interest. And I want to age adjust so I can control for those different age distributions to see whether risk is higher in the urban versus the rural area due to the irritants. Okay, so I'm looking at the effect of the irritants. Now, these questions are different. They basically might use the same information, but you would use different different rates to answer the question. So this is kind of the key here. We will have to figure out for our need for the data, our objective, whether we're more like example one or we're more like example two. Now, one thing to also mention here is that, as I mentioned before, the selection of the standard that I'm going to adjust again will affect that final number, that adjusted number that I get. And that if I pick some age distributions which have higher proportions of the population in particular parts of the age distribution, it is going to make that rate go up or down. So you have a decision to make, what standard to use. There is no guideline on that. There's no rule, there are kind of things you should think about, but the choice of the standard is really important, as is the number of categories that you divide the population into, how many age groups, for example. So those are decisions that moving forward, if we decide we want to age adjust, we would also have to do. How many age categories and what standard should we use? Next slide. So this is really going to go through this really quickly. We have some examples of what happens when you age adjust, so you can actually see the results. And we have data from 3 countries. We have country A. For country A, we have data for the 5 and over and the 18 and over. For country B, we only have data for 18 and over. And for country C, we have data for 5 and over and 18 and over. And we were going to use the very different underlying age structures for these different countries for illustrative purposes. So we're going to use as our standard the age distribution in the 3 countries. We'll have 3 kind of different standards. These are illustrative purposes, and you just assume they come from the census. So first we'll calculate the crude rates for each country, then we'll calculate the age-specific rates for each country, then we'll calculate the age-adjusted rates by using the age-specific rates and the age distributions from the country they come from, which is just the crude rate, and then the other 2 countries, and then we're going to compare them and see what the results are. Now, I'm also assuming that the data collections are comparable, so that everyone used the same questionnaire, they did it the same way, the data collections were done in a consistent fashion. So the data themselves are comparable. That is a different question. We're assuming that is the case. This is just the impact of using whether you age adjust the rates or not. Next one, please. So just the step 1, these are just the simple crude rates. So you can see that for the 5 and over group, the rate for country C is much higher than the rate for country A. And for the 18 and over, the rates for country B and C are also much higher than country A. This is where we start from. You'll see these rates, these numbers throughout the next several slides. Next slide, please. So here we've calculated the age-specific rates for the 3 countries. And you can see for country A, all the rates are lower. Country B has some slightly lower rates in the younger groups, but higher in the older groups than country C. But all are lower than in country A, and you can see the number of age categories that this is based on. So 5 to 17, 18 to 29, and so forth, and finishing off at 80 plus. Next slide, please. These are the 3 age distributions for the countries. You can see country A is the youngest distribution, country B is getting older, and country C is the oldest age distribution. Next slide, please. So how do we do the calculation? Okay, so the first column on these 2 parts of the slide are the age-specific rates. So we have country A, this is the 5 and over. There's country A's age-specific rates. You saw them on the previous slide. And then the second column next to it is the multiplication of those rates times country C's age distribution. And if you add all that up, then you would get the age-adjusted rate. We can take country C's age-specific disability rates, you also saw those, multiply them by the age distribution, which we showed visually, and you get country C's age-adjusted rate using country A's age distribution, okay? And the next slide shows you same thing for the 18 and over. Start out with country A age-specific rate. We then show the multiplication of the age-specific times country B's age distribution, then country C's age distribution. Then we have country B's age-specific rate. Then we have the multiplication of those rates times the age distribution using country A, and then C, and then so on for the country C. Their specific age-specific rates, then multiplied by the age distribution of country A and then B. And you'll notice the color coding here. We go to the next slide. You'll see that a little bit later. And all I've shown on this is the results of all of that. And we're going to go through this in much greater detail, so I'm not going to talk about this slide. I just wanted you to have it later. when you get the slides. Okay, so here we have the legends. And this gets a little complicated, and I hope I can keep it straight. So please bear with me. And I will tell you on one of the slides, there's a slight color error, but I'll point that out. So each country is assigned a color. You probably figured that out already. Country A is blue, country B is orange, and country C is green. When you see a solid color in a bar, that indicates it's the crude rate. So that means the rate was calculating using the age distribution for that country. So you see that country A, that first blue bar, that's country A was blue, that's their crude rate because it's solid. When you see the diagonal lines, that indicates the country color. So in the little illustration there, you have country A, there's blue diagonal lines. That means it's country A's estimate. But when you see the outline line, which is in a different color, there it's green, that tells you which country's age distribution we're using. So for country A, we're using here country C's age distribution because it's green. And on the other side, we have country C's crude rate because it's solid green. And the bar next to it is country C's age adjusted rate because it's diagonal, but it's using the age distribution for country A. And that will be for the rest of these figures, and I hope I get it right, please. Next one, please. Okay, again, these are just the crude rates again. You saw this already, country A, 5 and over, 1.8 compared to country C, where their rate is 8.1. For 18 and over, country A is 2.4, country B 9.1, country C 9. Next slide, please. Okay, this slide shows what happens when you age adjust, and here's where there's a little color thing going on. So the first two bars are country A, right, because they're blue, but the second bar should have green on the outline. So what happens when you age adjust country A to country C's age distribution, you can see the age adjusted rate goes up. It was 1.8, now it's 4.3. What happens with country C, when you use the age distribution of country A, remember that was the youngest age distribution, it goes down by a fair amount, 8.1 to 5.1. So when you use an older age distribution, like we did for country A, the age adjusted rate goes up. When you use a younger age distribution, it goes down because the older age distribution gives more weight to what's happening in the older ages. Next one, please. All right, and this is what happens with the 18 or over. And this is a little bit more interesting because when you look at country A, remember it was 2.4. It now goes up to 3.4 when you use country B's age distribution, the orange line, and goes up to 5 when you use country C's age distribution, the green line. When you look at country B now, it started out at 9.1. When you use country A's distribution, it goes down to 6.7. Again, that was the youngest age distribution. But when you use country C's, it goes up, as you would have expected. So all this is as we would expect just from what we know about the age distribution. And for country C, they both go down more with country A's distribution because it's the youngest, and still goes down, but not as much when you use country C's, country B's age distribution. Sorry, almost got it. Okay, that was comparing what happens to actually when you look at within the country, what's happening when you age adjust. Now we're going to look at what happens when you compare the rates. So I'm repeating here the crude rates. For 5 and over, remember it was 1.8 for country A, 8.1 for country C. There's a pretty big difference. When I age adjust to country A's distribution, okay, they become closer, 1.8 to 5.1. This is all the same data, we're just rearranging how we're looking at it. When we use country C's age distribution, we now see a comparison of 8.1 to 4.3. So the magnitude of the difference between country A and country C changes depending on which age distribution you're using. Whether you're using country A, the youngest age distribution, or country C, the oldest age distribution. See something similar, but a little bit more complicated when we look at the 18 and over on the next slide. Again, we have the three crude rates together so you can see them, but you'll see they're also duplicated through in the other little columns. We had 2.4, and B and C were very similar, around 9. When we use country A's age distribution, okay, for country A, it's the same crude rate, 2.4. When we use country B's age distribution, it goes to 6.7. And when we use, we look at within country A, it comes down to 5.8. So here, if I were combining the three countries, A, B, and C, using countries A's age distribution, I screwed that up. I knew I was going to do it. I am sorry. Here we're looking at just country A age distribution for the three countries. So I would now say that still country B and C are close. Country C is still a little lower, but the differences are much smaller. When I look at country B's age distribution, looks very different now. These comparisons look very different. Now, country B is the highest, using their age distribution. When I look at country A is lower, and now country C is in between. That's a different picture than when I look at the country C age distribution. I go back to the 9.0 for the crude rate. Now I have country A is going to 5.0, and country B is going all the way up to 12.4 when I use country C's older age distribution. And if you remember, country B had higher age-specific rates in the older age groups. That's why their rate is going much higher than it had been before. And this shows the effect of using different age distributions. So if I did the crude rate, I'd say A is low, B and C are the same. If I use country A's distribution, A, it's still low, B and C are still similar. But if I use country B's distribution, it looks different. So A is still low, but now B is higher, C is lower. And if I use C, same thing, A is still low, B is lower, C is lower, and B is higher, right? But the differences are bigger. The differences are much bigger. So I would make slightly different interpretations depending on which country's age distribution I'm using, which I think illustrates what happens when you age adjust, but also the importance of picking the standard. And it will also make a difference depending on how many categories you use. And I apologize for messing that up. Next slide, please. Okay, so the impact just briefly of the age distribution. They have different age distributions. Again, country A is the youngest, followed by country B. C has the oldest. They have different age-specific rates. And between B and C, there's kind of a flip. You have somewhat higher rates in the younger ages and then lower in country C. And then the effect of the age adjustment depends on which distribution you're using. And I think that is shown better on the slide that we just saw. And again, those comparisons will change depending on which age distribution, which standard is being used. So next slide. So what are the next steps? Okay, so we have, I think, a couple of questions that we need to answer. Again, not today, but at some point. Should Washington Group products that include prevalence estimates from more than one country, whether it's on the same table or in these very similar kinds of publications, use crude or age-adjusted rates, whether it's for the total or for the domain specific, or whether they're actually within some other characteristic like sex. Would it be too confusing and take too much space if we showed multiple prevalences? For example, you show the crude and the age-adjusted if we were looking at multiple domains. Is it too much to show all the age-specific rates? If we're going to do an adjustment, which age-adjust composition standard should be used? So I think that we need to reach consensus on these three. Again, perhaps not today, but we're going to open the floor to see what you think about this, and perhaps there is consensus, I don't know. And you can put your comments in the chat or raise your hand. And then whatever I think we decide today, we do need volunteers to form a group to determine best practice recommendations to address the issue, whether it's we will age adjust and this is how, or we will not age adjust and this is why. And that would hope to be a time limited group, so you're not signing on for many years. We would love it if the recommendations could be presented at the fall annual meeting or at a special webinar that we could have either in between or right after and so as usual, we're going to be asking for volunteers. So I am now going to open the floor for any comments, questions, anything you would like to discuss. And of course, volunteers are always welcome at any time.
Thank you, Jennifer. I know that was a tough presentation to get through a lot of information, and we do have some time left. Let me start with the comments in the chat. One of the earliest ones that came in was from Rajan, and Rajan says that age-adjusted rates look convincing and more realistic. So not a question, but a comment there. There is a question from Chung in Vietnam. The question is, for a sample survey, we can calculate an age-adjusted weight, correct?
Yeah, anything that I just was assuming census data because it was just keep us focused, but you can calculate crude and adjusted rates from any data set. It's a survey, you can do it on an administrative day, as long as you can divide the population by your composition groups, whether it's age or set, whatever it is, you can, and you have denominators, you can always calculate it. If you only have numerators, it's tougher, but if you have numerators and denominators, you can always calculate the age-adjusted rate from surveys. So this would apply to pretty much any population-based data we want to use.
I'm not so certain that it was about an age-adjusted rate because Chung's comment says we can calculate it an age-adjusted weight, W-E-I-T. So I'm not certain that we.
Yeah, maybe Chung, you might want to expand, but I think that the weight is what you use to get the age-adjusted rate. It's the set of weights that are applied to get the rate, and you can get that from the survey, yes.
Okay. Sophia from INDEC says, I think that a summary rate could be calculated similar to what is done with the global fertility rate. So Sophia, feel free to jump in as well. Are you talking about, an overall summary disability rate for each country to be reported out? I'm not entirely certain. So,
There she is.
Hi.
Maybe I can speak in Spanish and Heidi can help me with the translation to explain my question or my idea, not question.
That would be fine, Sophia. Just please be sure to speak very slowly, clearly, and loudly into your microphone. So I'm sure that I've captured the information, and also break up your explanation into segments so I can follow the translation very closely.
Okay. ¿Se escucha bien?
Se escucha más o menos, por eso te pedía por favor si puedes hablar más cerca a tu micrófono y tal vez en una voz un poquito más alta.
Sí, tengo un dispositivo Bluetooth que voy a desconectar así. ¿Ahora se escucha mejor?
Mucho mejor, sí, gracias.
Perfecto. No, yo pensaba que tal vez se podía calcular una medida resumen teniendo estas tasas estandarizadas como se hace con la tasa global de fecundidad. Esa era mi idea para por ahí también tener una medida comparativa y no tantas como tasas específicas. Me parece que está bueno empezar a pensar esto de relacionar la edad con la prevalencia de discapacidad, que es algo que que está muy relacionado, y pensaba en eso, en poder sumar por ahí estas tasas específicas por edad y tener esa medida resumen, y por ahí empezar a comparar también esas medidas resúmenes entre países. Esa era como la idea.
Perfecto, muchas gracias. So what Sophia is suggesting is something that's similar to the global disability rate, which is a sum of the age-specific disability rates. Of the age-specific fertility rates. So the similar to disability, fertility is also an event that varies by age. So the global fertility rate is a sum of the age-specific fertility rates. So that's what she's suggesting, that instead of having many age-specific rates, that they be summarized into sort of a global rate, which I think the response, well, go ahead, Jennifer, and respond to that suggestion.
I think that since we had talked about age adjustment, so we were focusing here on age adjustment, but if there's an alternative to how we could do joint publications, that is one not of these two, then I think that's absolutely possible. And I would really encourage you to be on the work group so that you can bring this up. Because I think it's not that it's crude or age adjusted. If there's another way to do it, then that's better. Then yes, let's go ahead and do that. So yeah, keep that. We'll make a note of that, but we would need people who are really familiar with that method to be on that group. So thank you for the offer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. Thank you as well, Heidi. There are a number of people placing requests for the slides in the chat, and we will most certainly be sharing the slide deck from the entire day. But I saw a hand from Isabella. Isabella, would you like to unmute yourself and ask a question?
Hi. Yes, I would just like to support the idea of when we do comparisons between countries that we do age adjustments, just to demonstrate the big differences in Africa, for example. If you use the UNSD categorization of countries, the median age in Southern Africa is around 28 years. But in East Africa, Central Africa, and West Africa, the median age is between 17 and 19. So that in itself already just shows you that on one continent, given that we know that disability is more prevalent amongst older persons, already complicates comparative analysis between countries. And then, of course, Mexico and India, very similar to the Southern Africa countries, close to 28, 29 median age. So I think, yes, there's a good case to be made when we do comparisons between countries to adjust. Then the second point that I want to make is I completely agree with looking at this methodology being used to calculate the global fertility rate. I think that there's a lot of potential to use that for a global disability type rate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Isabella. Another hand from Bethany.
Hi, thank you very much for this really careful presentation. I have to preface my question by saying I'm not a statistical expert, as my question will show, but I care very much about how statistical information is used. I work in the policy space with International Disability Alliance, and my question is, what are the risks associated with this? I hear colleagues talking about how it, like, in support of it, but I'd love to hear from you what the potential risks of sort of misuse of this data could be by policymakers specifically, particularly with the assumption that's underlying this, that disability in older age is naturally occurring. And even like with the hypotheticals that were chosen, I mean, the fact is that more older people live in urban areas than rural areas now. And I would see a confounding variable for that example on iHealth, that people in rural areas cook over open fires, and it would be more specific to women who live longer than men and cook over open fires. I just see, I'm coming at it from a policy angle, and so I'm looking at sort of I'm looking at how this information would actually be used by policymakers and could potentially discount the disability of older people. That's the risk that I see for part of the population that we advocate for. So could you just talk us through what some of the risks are, maybe what some of the mitigation measures are that can be put in place for that?
And yes, and I think that this is also something that we would hope the work group would deal with, because as I said, I think to me, the biggest risk with an age-adjusted rate or any adjusted rate is that users think it's real, that this is the prevalence of this condition in that area, because it's not. You never want to give an adjusted rate by itself without anything else. You know, I think in Isabella's point, if we're comparing two countries, you have two rates that you're looking at. But if we were just giving, you know, we do not do age-adjusted rates if we're just giving the percent of the population in our country at one point in time that have a characteristic. And I think it's easy for people to forget that and start believing that that number means something in terms of its magnitude, because it doesn't. So I think that is the primary risk. The other is not picking the number, what you're going to be presenting based on what the use of the information is, not making that connection. And often when you're just doing a lot of tables, there is no specific objective that you're trying to show. So many countries do these very large tables of data by different characteristics. And what you see in there mostly, there will be a crude rate and an age-adjusted rate so people can see both. And then it's very clear what the differences are. I think our use right now is somewhat different. We're not doing these big tables. We're trying to do something that is based on comparing situations in one country versus another. And if the entire comparison is due to the age distribution, it's due to that, well, there's more disability in this country than the other. Yes, that's true, but it's a function of their age distribution. That is, for some policy purposes, not of interest. Not because we're not interested in the risk factors among older people. That's an age-specific issue. It's we want to look overall at the condition of the country. So I think that whatever route we decide to go in this particular activity, that publication needs to be very clear about what we're presenting. So we have to provide context. And if there's an alternative that's even better, then I think we should use it, because you know, as attractive as adjusted rates are, and I must say, I have to admit, I've used them my whole career. We very often use age-adjusted rates. You do run into this misinterpretation of what does it mean, and it is not necessary to discount. Now, if I use an age standard that has more people in the older age groups where rates are higher, it's going to look like more of a problem, not less of a problem. So just because you age adjust does not really mean that you're reducing the impact of one group versus the other. It depends on the standard, which is often why you take kind of a global standard. So if you're comparing all countries, you might take the population of the world, some estimate of the population of the world. But I don't think that while there are some risks, I don't see a risk as saying you will necessarily discount the status of a particular group. There is a place for age-specific rates. It's just where and how do you do that? And actually the particular thing that we're looking at, the proposed template, does look at age-specific rates so you can see them. I do think it's a lot about how it's presented and context to get around whatever the risks would be from a policy point of view. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. We're coming to the close of this session. Dan had a couple of comments in the chat. One was on the presentation itself, and Dan, I hope you don't mind, I'll set that aside for the moment. But Dan also mentions that in addition to age-adjusted rates, it is also important to disaggregate outcome indicators by age, because, for example, age is also correlated with many of the outcome indicators and disability. And then Steve says, I think it's better to see what a Census Bureau has done about age adjustment. They have developed sheets that take consideration or the region when producing a standard of age structure. So, you know, we've recorded all of these comments. We've recorded the questions. Thank you so much. I think the most important next step for this particular topic is to move forward with forming this work group who will talk more about these issues and consider possible solutions and directions forward. And should you be interested in participating in that, and we would very much appreciate that participation, could you please put that in the chat or email us and volunteer to do so, because we're not going to have time today to discuss necessarily any further. So thank you, Jennifer, very, very much. Heidi, we'll move to the next session if everyone is okay with that. So in session 3 today, we want to hear a little bit from the work groups themselves. And we have 4 active work groups. They are listed here in this slide, and I'm going to allow the work group leaders to just hand off to each other rather than coming back in individually. I'll look at the chat, so if there are any questions, I will let you know. But if we can start with Margie and the mental health and psychosocial functioning update, that would be wonderful.
Thanks, Julie. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good. In terms of the psychosocial disability and mental health work group, we're moving on with the cognitive testing of the functioning, the psychosocial functioning measures. And we have at least 1 country fully committed, and we're waiting for responses from a couple of others. We are finalizing the training and hope to run the first pilot training course around October, November of this year, if not a little earlier. In addition, we've had some discussions with international NGOs that form part of the Interagency Steering Committee task team. And the role of this task team is to develop mental health and psychosocial support for people in humanitarian crises and to ensure the inclusion of persons with disability in all humanitarian action. And the members of this group are particularly interested in the work of the work group and are keen to use these measures in their work. And we've had discussions on developing a funding proposal to allow their local partners to undergo the training and conduct the cognitive testing interviews and potentially some field testing in the countries where they are. These organizations are local partners that don't have the required funding to do it themselves, so it would be a case of trying to find that funding to fund that work. The international organization is currently interested includes CBM Global and HI, or Humanity and Inclusion. And this funding proposal would include the Washington Group as a partner on the team. And it would be about finding a funder and developing a proposal to do this further work for the work group. So the next steps are firstly to finalize the training and run a pilot training, potentially with Costa Rica and some of the IASC house team organizations or their local partners, to conduct the cognitive testing interviews in the countries where people have been trained, to prepare a funding proposal together with the IASC organizations to conduct the cognitive and field testing in various locations of the local partners. And on a slightly separate note, to continue looking for data that include, at minimum, the Washington Group short set, as well as the affect questions, the depression and anxiety questions from the extended set, or that include the whole Washington Group extended set. This will allow for further analyses on how the affect questions function as a measure of mental health and psychosocial functioning, and to allow us to develop recommendations on the use of those questions as part of the set of questions to ensure the inclusion of people with psychosocial disability. So what are our requests to everybody is, firstly, what are your thoughts about developing a funding proposal? Secondly, is your country interested in conducting some of the cognitive interviewing and potentially some field testing of the psychosocial functioning measures? And lastly, if your organization or country has collected data that includes the Washington Group short set with the affect questions, please let us know so we could look at doing further analyses on the performance of the affect questions. And Elena, is there anything that I've left out that you want to add? Elena? No, okay. All right, so that's all from our work group.
Thank you, Margie. Before Mitch takes a turn, there was a question in the chat about sharing the mental health and psychosocial functioning questions, as there are other data collections being developed, and one is mentioned there in the chat from Egypt. Also, why don't I suggest that Margie or Elena, will you put your contact information into the chat so that people will be able to reach you directly to ask questions, or if there's interest in additional testing opportunities, please?
That would be amazing if we could communicate and discuss that further. Definitely, we would be very interested.
Great, thank you. There are no other items in the chat, so we can move on now. Hi, Mitch.
Hello, and hello, everybody. It is good to see many familiar faces and names on this call. I'm going to provide 2 updates for the 2 work groups that have landed on my desk. I'll start with the analysis work group, and you heard some of the introduction to this in Jennifer's introductory presentation, the key arrangements that came out of the Washington Group 20 meeting. I just want to remind you of those. 3 main areas. One was sort of website access. We want to continue to make refinements to improve accessibility and user friendliness of the Washington Group website based on whatever feedback we've received. The second area was in terms of really analysis and documentation of that analysis. we wanted to finalize the guidance documents for analysis of data collected using the Washington Group tools, including the severity indicators that I presented last September, and the disability indicators for multiple domains. We wanted to finalize the development of syntax and make those documents available. We wanted to continue work in the third area on the development of the standard templates for reporting data collected using the Washington Group tools. That was some of the material that Julie presented. These 1, 2, maybe 3-page country summaries that will also benefit perhaps from the use of age adjustment techniques that Jennifer presented. So since that meeting, I wanted to mention that the following has happened. Those 2 documents, as Jennifer mentioned, have been made available on the website. Disability severity indicators using the Washington Group questions, and domain-specific indicators using the same short set of questions. And these documents are available in SPSS, Stata, SAS, and CS Pro. So that is a complete package now, and I encourage you to explore those and use them in your data analysis and presentations. Analytic guidelines for the short set enhanced, and the extended set are also now available in all 6 of the official UN languages: Arabic, Chinese, English, French, Russian, and Spanish, plus Vietnamese and Portuguese, both Portugal and Brazil versions of that language. Also, in terms of analysis, we continue, or work continues, on the analysis of the child functioning module, both at NCHS, using data collected on the National Health Interview Survey, and at UNICEF, compiling data from several national multiple indicator cluster surveys. And I'll just note for you that those data, the mix data, are available to everyone on the UNICEF Mix website. And I know that other researchers have accessed those data and have also begun analyses. In terms of the development of standard templates for reporting data, that work group continues to, as Jennifer mentioned, recruit additional countries to contribute to the effort of producing these reports. Again, this will benefit from the work that is discussed on age adjustment, but if you have a disability survey that you've done and are analyzing and preparing, or a census, any data collection, it is a simple and standard way to produce results that will be, on the surface at least, comparable with other countries that have followed the same methodology, again, pending age adjustment. And if enough of these are available, then they can be uploaded. We consider uploading them onto the website for dissemination. I want to move on because I'll move right on to the child functioning work group, and we can take sort of multiple comments. Key arrangements after the Washington Group 20 meeting on the child functioning work group was to continue work with UNICEF on the development of the inclusive education module, specifically to carry out additional cognitive testing in countries where we could identify a population of out-of-school children. So that's the inclusive education module, and to continue work on the development of what we've called the CFM TV, a teacher version of the child functioning module. As you may recall, that was initiated in late 2019. And we've been sort of promoting it, trying to get develop interest and get countries to use it and test it. We want to determine whether that module is suitable for incorporation into education management information systems. And I'll just sort of refresh your memory that this child functioning module teacher version doesn't deviate substantially from the fully tested and finalized child functioning module. It is shorter, it is easier for a teacher to complete on a classroom of students. So the content is the same, it's really a test of applicability in a different setting. So since Washington Group 20, the actual work on the child functioning, of the child functioning work group has been, as many activities have, been negatively impacted by the COVID pandemic. But that hasn't impacted the interest expressed in the tools that we've developed. Both the inclusive education module and the teacher version of the child functioning module each of them has generated interest through emails in the Washington Secretariat inbox. So that what we have done is we have made a pre-final version of the inclusive education module minus the out of school section. We've made that available upon request through the website. UNICEF has agreed that major portion of the inclusive education module is complete and would benefit from use testing, field testing, and use in multiple countries. We would always, in those circumstances, request that countries that use a pre-final version, that they report back to us on their experiences using it, either through a formal field test or sort of a qualitative analysis of impressions, feasibility, applicability of the tool in the field. So that is ongoing. Again, that request or those applications, like the ones I'm going to explain with the child functioning teacher version module, have been put on hold because of COVID. Final cognitive testing of the out of school section of the inclusive education module has been placed on hold. There were plans as early as late 2019 to recruit countries to do that cognitive testing of out of school portion, but because of COVID, that has been totally delayed. The child functioning module teacher version in particular has generated considerable interest, and requests for information on the tool have been received by, I tallied my request or requests that came either to me personally or were forwarded to me through emails from about 12 different organizations, both NGOs and international NGOs, OPDs, and academic institutions, as well as national development ministries like USAID. So since its sort of inception in late 2019, there have been multiple requests for this. This is an area of growing interest. And I can tell you that I have shared the teacher version of the child functioning module with these requests, with these groups, in the hopes that they would go into the field and test them and report back. But to date, none of them have actually made it into the field. So that's where we stand on those. I just wanted to report briefly on the website. There have been a growing number of users to the website. about 1,400 users per week, 6,000 users per month. We get web analytics on a periodic basis, and we can tell that there are new users every week. Many of them come from the US and the UK, many from Germany, so we know where they come from. But we need to increase our sort of exposure beyond sort of the usual suspects of users. So I know that we can provide more information on this. We can share this information with documentation that goes out after the meeting, but I think I'll end there for brevity's sake. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Mitch. There are no follow-up comments or questions at the moment, so we can move to Robert. Robert, would you like to give your update from the Environment and Participation Group?
Hello, everybody. I hope you are hearing me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I just want to give you the status as at now, and then also look at the next steps and challenges. We did develop the concept paper for collecting data on environment and participation for persons with disabilities. And we also identified the criteria for the development of the questionnaires for data collection on environment and participation. Now we need to work on a few things. Work on the questionnaire as a group. Before we present the same to the Washington Group stakeholders for review and adoption, once we complete the questionnaire and it is approved, then we are going to plan for the production of the survey manual. Later on, then we look at ways of funding to conduct the cognitive test in a few selected countries. We will then use the cognitive test results from the various countries to finalize the questionnaires and the manual. And later on also look for funds to conduct the pilot test to establish the analytical properties of the module. Thereafter, we'll need to share the results with the Washington Group stakeholders for approval and present the same, the approved questionnaires and the manual to the UN Statistical Division for adoption. So I just want to look at the challenges, and we only have one major challenge in this group. The major challenge that we have is low participation of member countries. So there is need to bridge this gap. I don't know which system we are going to use in order for us to have everybody participating whenever we call for meetings. This will enable the group to move faster and also accomplish the task. So the way forward for us one is that the group will have to meet next month, that is June 2021. And our main agenda when the meeting is held will be the formation of subgroups. These subgroups are going to tackle different sections of the questionnaire formation. The assignment of the work, then we'll have to assign work per each group and discuss when to accomplish the assignments. Now, the subgroups will start development of the concept paper first, and then also look at the methodological guidelines and the survey questionnaire. So I'll be leaving the public service on Monday, that is 31st of May, and Renis Bunde from our office in Kenya National Bureau of Statistics will take over from me. So my request is that you give her the cooperation that is required. That is all that we have for this work group. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Robert. I'm not seeing any hands up at the moment. Does anyone have particular questions for any of our work group leaders?
I just, Julie, wanted to thank Robert for all the work he's done as a member and for leading the environment and participation group. I know it's been a bit challenging, so, but I think you've given a good basis and hopefully we can move forward with it because we get a lot of questions about environment participation. So thank you very much, Robert.
Yes, best to you in your next move, Robert. One thing I did want to follow up with, Mitch suggested, or Mitch reported out that the documents on disability severity, as well as the multiple domain analysis documents, are available on the web. I will add that those also have been translated into other languages, the UN languages, and a handful of others, and those are also available, as well as the analytic guidelines that he mentioned. So that's all available. I don't see any further hands and I don't see any questions in the chat box, which means that we can move forward with session 4. And I will hand this particular session over to Heidi.
Hello again, everyone. I'm very pleased to be able to moderate this particular session on regional disability statistics groups. As you'll see, the regional groups have made important progress since the annual meeting. And for those of you who are not yet part of one of these groups, this will be an excellent opportunity to hear a little bit more about the work that's being done in your region and for you to engage directly with the regional chair should you wish to contribute to these important efforts. Also, a small reminder for those who are involved in the regional groups, as well as for those who are not yet involved in the regional groups, is that on the Washington Group website, there is a specific area devoted to the regional groups where you can look for information and where we hope the regional groups will share the documents, progress that they've made, and other resources for those interested in data and disability statistics in a particular region. So for this session, we've asked the chairs to focus their intervention on specific challenges they're facing, as well as on next steps. So without further ado, I would please ask Malefono, who's from the Pacific Group on Disability Statistics, to unmute herself and give us the update for that group. Thank you. Malefono, are you there, or someone who will present on behalf of the Pacific Group on Disability Statistics?
They may be at the other meeting, Heidi.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
Thank you. And actually, it just occurred to me also that they have not, unfortunately, sent an update, so we're not able to present anything on that. So in this case, we'll start off with Rami Al-Dibs, who is the representative from the Casablanca Group. Rami, please, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody, and good evening from Palestine. Greeting for all. I want to talk about, and I will be very short, about the Casablanca Group. I think you will present the presentation, or I just speak about it?
It's up to you, Rami. If you'd like to share the presentation and are able to do so, you can just, I'll stop sharing my screen and you can share yours. Let me know what you'd prefer.
Because I have a limited time, I think I will just speak about it, and you have already the presentation, maybe later, or you can put it on the website, whatever.
Excellent. We'll do that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Let me speak here about the Casablanca. Casablanca is a group for Arabs. Just a small and short definitions of the Casablanca for disability statistics in the Arab country. It is a technical group of 4 improving disability statistics in the Arabic country, consists of representatives from National Statistical Office, together with international and UN agencies, and also a group of experts from Arab country. CASA group was established in response to the main recommendation of the Casablanca workshop organized by the Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia, which is called ISQA, in collaboration with the Washington Group, entitled Improving Disability Statistics in the Arab Country, which was held on April 17, 2017 in Morocco. It's 3 years past from here, and the main reason for establishing CASA group and the idea was to break, first of all, to break the language barriers and encourage the Arab countries to use Washington Group questions as a main tool for collecting data on disability. Also, to developing and improving production of comparable indicators related to persons with disability in the Arab region. What was done during the 3 years? But the past 3 years, several meetings were conducted. Some of them were virtual and others were a real meeting. One was in Jordan, other was in Cairo. Also, in 2020, an expert group were established, and it was a forward step to form a subgroup of the CASA group, which is, we called it expert group, and it consists of the expert in the Arab countries. Some of them are with us here today. From Egypt, Dr. Hassan, Hussein, from Iraq also, Dr. Samir. This group was established to discuss and develop the disability statistics in Arab region. Several publications have been prepared during the 3 past years. The most important of them was the glossary, disability glossary, which contained 1,172 terms and definitions from English to Arabic, including the short question and extended question of the Washington Group. Also, there was a regional guidebook to improve disability data collection and analysis for the users and who want to or interested in the statistics of disability. Also, there was another publication, which is ISQA, Disability Indicators Framework, which contain 115 indicators. All these applications are available in the ISQA website. Way forward and what we plan to work in the future. First of all is building capacity of statistics and who are working in the field. Also, disability, we are thinking about how to collect data of disability statistics under crisis and such as COVID-19. Also working with ISQA to build a disability database in the Arab region and the new one and the new round of data collection 2021. We already have one in 2018, and now we are thinking and working to establish, publish the new one and prepare the new one, which is a lot of tables on statistics in different ways. This is my presentation about the Casablanca. Waiting if there is any question, and thank you all.
Thank you very much, Rami. Julie, if you could please tell me if there are any questions or comments in the chat for Rami at this time.
No, there are not. Thank you.
Okay, so next we'll
Thank you.
hear from Steve Mboko from the Brazzaville group. He's the chair of that group. Please, Steve, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Heidi. Hi, everyone. Is that okay for, are you listening to me, please?
Yes,
hi,
we hear you
Steve.
perfectly. Mhm.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. I'm here to present you. I'm trying to share my screen.
I will stop sharing my screen and you'll start sharing yours.
Okay. Thank you. Here is the agenda I have for the Brazzaville Group on Disability Statistics. Just 3 small points. The first one is about the group. The second, the coming activities, and the third is the future activities. So for the first one, Brazzaville Group, let me see. Yes, for Brazzaville Group, let's say that Brazzaville Group is a group of with 25 francophone countries in Africa, with a population estimated about 300 million. And in this population, about 6 or 12 million live with disabilities. So we have some activities for this year and some for the next years. For 2021, with the assistance of Washington Group Secretariat, we are planning to carry out 2 major activities by June or July in Yaoundé, Cameroon. The first activity is a meeting. We just want to have a meeting of country members of the group to promote research in health statistics with a focus on disability statistics suitable for countries, population census, and surveys. It's also to consolidate the link between country members and knowledge practices sharing between representatives of national statistical institutes of the countries, of all the countries. The second activity is the training workshop on disability statistics, with the goal to train statisticians from statistical office on how to collect data on the different types of disability that are short or long module of Washington Group. It's also to train statisticians on analysis and interpretation of data from Washington Group tool using SPSS, data, Stata, or other programs. For this point, I wanted to thank Mitch for the job they have done to make available all the analysis tool we do need. The problem now is to think about the way to support the regional group to implement these tools to the countries so they can use it for the statistical collection data they do have. So for our future activities, we are planning to have in 2022 and more annual meeting. We just want to carry on a meeting every year if it's possible. And also to include a module on disability statistics in demographic statistical training of IFOD. IFOD is a francophone school of demography, a francophone school of demography that's in Cameroon. And there are students from all the country. There are 22 francophone countries there. So students came from all this country, and we are planning to have one module on disability statistics. And the other activity is to support to strengthen the operational capacity of the Brazzaville Group Secretariat to give the ability to the Secretariat to support country or to let them know all that is done by the Washington Group Secretariat and to help them to implement those tools. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve, for your presentation. If you could stop sharing your screen, then I will be able to show again our slide deck. And in the meantime, then we invite Rajan Silval to present. He is the chair of the Kathmandu Group. Please, Rajan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Heidi. The Kathmandu Group on Disability Statistics was initiated after the London workshop, and it's almost more than 1 year. More than 1 year, the group was formed. I would like to share my experience basically and the challenges we have faced in the functionality of this group. It's almost a year that I sent an email to all the member countries of the SAARC region, namely Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. Out of those 8 countries, including Nepal, I got response only from Maldives and Bhutan that they are interested to be a part of this group and to contribute whatever they can from their end. But the big countries of this region or of this group, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, obviously, they are also good and strong NSOs in this region. We have not received any responses yet from these member countries, also from Sri Lanka. I think the problem, what I realized this time is the email did not reach to the concerned official of those NSOs. And I do remember that Mitch also sent an email in 2020 regarding this group, regarding the formation of this group and the functionality of this group. But I didn't know there is any positive responses from those say big countries in this region. And today in this meeting, I saw some of the friends from India, NSU India, Ashwin and Sanjay, Dr. Sanjay. I hope Sanjay and Ashwin will soon officially join this group, and even Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. Without having them in this group, without having their active participation and support, the Kathmandu group will not be meaningful to materialize its objectives and functionality. So I request the Washington Group Secretariat to coordinate once again to the NSO heads or the concerned officials to bring them all in this group, because from our end till the date I could not get responses from rest of the 5 countries. So we are still at the same place, not much progressed as you dreamed for. So this is the case and problem we are facing, and once we get all the member countries or most of the member countries, including India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, we can accelerate the group as it is meant for. And for the future plans, what I see the possibility is identify the concerned person of respective NSOs with the help of Washington Group Secretariat. The second is organize a virtual meeting facilitated by Washington Group Secretariat and learn practices of member countries in the collection and analysis of disability statistics. And the third one would be prepare a draft UR of the group. Heidi, this is what I would like to share in this media meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rajan, for sharing those challenges. You certainly have our support to try to advance the work of the group. Maybe one thing that would be helpful at this moment is if you could include your email address in the chat, and if there are countries, some of the countries you mentioned, with representatives here who would like to engage you to learn more about the work of the group and to become involved, they can do so directly. Thanks again, Rajan. We now welcome Nicolas Petrescu. Oh, sorry.
May I interrupt you? I'm sorry.
It's okay.
There is a hand up. Sanjay.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Rajanji, for giving his thought on the Kathmandu group. Yes, I will request to that you please send a formal email to us so that we can get it approved from our in our NSO, and we will formally join the Kathmandu group once the approval has been taken. And we got an email from Mr. Rajan regarding this Kathmandu group, and we suggested that we may have at least a virtual meeting with the SAARC representative so that some modalities can be discussed there, and even we can start working on the standardization of concept and definition within the SAARC region. So I will request to Mr. Rajan that you please send us a formal email, and we will definitely join the group, and we will be happy to join the group after taking the necessary approval from the NSO India. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Julie. Is there anything else in the chat that I should be aware of before we move on?
I see none. And Rajan has responded to the question in the chat for all to see. Thank you,
Excellent.
Heidi.
No problem. So now we do welcome Nicolas Petrescu, who is the chair of the Buenos Aires group, for his intervention. Please, Nicolas, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Heidi. Can you hear me? It's okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for all the colleagues around the world. On behalf of the Buenos Aires group, I'm going to describe briefly the work performed to the present day during the 19th Washington Group annual meeting held in Buenos Aires in 2019. The creation of the regional group for Latin America was proposed. So the National Institute of Statistics and Censuses, INDEC, of Argentina offered to lead the coordination of the regional group, so-called Buenos Aires Group. During the first part of 2020, many video conferences have been held between the technical teams of Brazil and Argentina, also ECLAC and the Washington Group. Thank you, Mitch, and Riadis participate on them. Also, we shared a video conference with the Pacific Group in order to share experiences about our regional groups. During the second part of the 2020, ECLAC joined the coordination of the group with a technical assistance role. So, last April took place the 20th meeting of the Executive Committee of the Statistical Conference of America of ECLAC, and within its framework was held a side event called Statistics on Disabilities with a Regional Perspective, the Buenos Aires group, where 80 participants were connecting during the meeting. The next steps, the more important for the group, are the following. Tomorrow, Thursday, 26th of May, will take place the first extended meeting of Buenos Aires group. We have, until yesterday, received the registration from 14 countries of the region. And I think that during tomorrow's meeting, the terms of reference will be confirmed. And I hope, and we also confirm the work schedule in the discussion session. The proposed activities for the group are the following. One, establish a schedule of virtual meetings to coordinate activities among the countries of the region. Two, maintain a fluid communication channel to share results and experiences. Three, strengthen and develop capacities within the countries. That means provide training workshop for producers and data users, collections, analysis and dissemination of data using the Washington Group tools, support collaboration between countries to share experiences in a South-South cooperation basis, standardize tools and analytical methodologies and generate standard product for dissemination, participate through the implementation of methodological exercises of the Washington Group's working subgroups. At last but not least, I would like to thank the Washington Group for their support. We have high expectation of the Buenos Aires Group, given that it will be very useful for the region to share and build capacity together. Those countries, the Latin American countries, I mean, that have not yet registered to attend the first virtual meeting for the region, can send an email to the following address. I will put it then in the chat also, to internacionales@indec.gov.ar. I will say it in Spanish for the ones that are from the region. Mañana tendremos la primera reunión ampliada del Grupo de Buenos Aires. Aquellos que no se han inscrito aún o no han enviado el punto focal, por favor háganlo a internacionales@indec.gov.ar y también en copia a sea@cepal.org. That's all from me. Thank you very much, and thank you. Hey, over to you.
Thank you very much, Nicolas. Julie, if there's anything in the chat, please let me know.
No comments.
Okay, excellent. So we will now welcome Robert again and Joliswa Damase from the newly conformed Southeast Africa Regional Group on Disability Statistics. Please, Robert and Joliswa, the floor is yours.
Good evening and good afternoon or morning to everyone. I'm Joliswa Damase and I'll be representing the South and East Africa Group. So there isn't really much that I'm going to be saying because the group has not formally started. So it's just for us to affirm our commitment as South Africa and as well as Kenya to co-chair the group. And everything else will then pan out from our first inception meeting, of which we're hoping it will take place as soon as possible. We have forwarded the contact of all African countries to the Washington Group to just sift out only the English-speaking countries, just to complement the list that they have currently at their disposal. Because the main aim is to make sure that we involve all the English-speaking countries, regardless of their status, to Washington Group on Disability Statistics, whether they are members or not, just to make sure that we cover everyone. And we're going to be encouraging everyone to participate in this group as well moving forward. So the list that we sent to the Washington Group, it's mainly for the heads of the NSOs, because we are hoping that if the invitation to join the regional group, it comes from the higher leadership, there will be much more commitment in ensuring that the group actually succeed in doing its work and carrying out the mandate that we're going to set ourselves to be achieving as soon as we put together the terms of reference and putting together the structures as well that we're going to need moving forward. So that's where we are at the moment. We're just hoping that the group will take off as soon as possible, but obviously after the inception meeting. So if there's anything else that Robert would want to add to what I've said, I think you can jump in, Robert, and say whatever. For now, yes, we are more than willing to co-chair the group, and we're going to be very much relying to the Secretariat, the Washington Group Secretariat, to guide us through the process moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ndamaze. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Washington Group Secretariat for forming this group that is going to target the Eastern and the Southern African countries that are English speaking. As Ndamaze says, we would really appreciate if the Washington Group Secretariat calls the inaugural meeting for all the countries after perhaps receiving acknowledgement from the various countries that they are willing to join this group. So we really appreciate if the Secretariat can organize for that inaugural meeting for this group to start off. Thank you so much. We don't have much to say apart from that. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Robert and Jaliswa. Julie, once again, if you could.
Mitch has yes, Mitch has his hand up, and at the moment there are no comments or questions in the chat.
Thanks, Julie. I just want to mention a couple of things. Going back to the very beginning and what Jennifer presented about funding from the German aid organization GIZ or BMZ, I can't remember which, but their funding is going specifically in part to support the Brazzaville and the South/East Africa regional groups. So we're hoping that with that funding, we can really support the activities of those groups in the larger Africa region. A couple of things I wanted to point out. Maybe from listening to the different presentations, you can understand that these really are regionally run groups. And the way they form themselves, the way they govern themselves is all internally determined. That doesn't come from the Washington Group Secretariat, but it is themselves that determine their governance and how they want to establish themselves. The commonalities within groups are primarily language. And that, as you are aware, has always been a bit of a barrier for the larger Washington Group, getting interpretation services and translating documents. Having groups that have a common language will help build capacity in the regions. That's been one of our goals. The other few things I wanted to mention, I'm not going to take a lot of time, is that the groups listed here, and I'll mention, Heidi, you can jump in, but the Pacific Group on Disability Statistics that we'll present in the afternoon session is also one of the earliest groups that was formed. They have terms of reference, and they have just finished an application for external funding to help support that group, and that will go to DFAT in the region. So we're hoping that that will be looked upon positively, and that funding will be made available to support the work of the Pacific Group on Disability Statistics. I did want to mention that there are other regions in the world that aren't included on that list. And I'll just name a couple for your reference. Nicholas mentioned ECLAC, which is the Economic and Social Commission, the UN Economic and Social Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. And we're hoping that ECLAC can be a bridging organization in the establishment of an eventual Caribbean group. So that is sort of in the pipeline, although not much has been activated in establishing that group. I don't want to forget the Russian-speaking groups or group that was discussed when we were in Moscow a couple of years ago. There is a lot of interest in getting that group off the ground. Our good colleague Anna at Rosstat, the Russian Statistical Office in Russia, have agreed to lead that group, but because of COVID and other sort of factors, that's been also put on hold a little bit. There are other groups, Southeast Asia, we haven't identified anyone, and sort of the larger European community, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, maybe something on an OECD model that would include other countries, US and Canada in particular, come to mind. But just to sort of fill out the picture of regional groups globally, I just wanted to add that. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mitch. I would just add very briefly that I do think that going forward, as the groups advance in their work, there will be a lot of opportunity for South-South collaboration and sharing experiences, for example, on securing external funding, on engaging with OPDs, conducting trainings, a whole range of things that I think would benefit a discussion among the regional groups themselves, so they can learn from the experience of other regional groups, what has worked, what has some challenges been. As we are a few minutes behind, I will end this session. Thank everyone for their updates and hand over the floor to Cordell Golden, who will moderate the final session.
Thank you, Heidi. It's good to see many familiar faces and names in the participant list. And so this last session before we close the meeting, we're going to have an open discussion, and we're going to talk about plans for the fall annual meeting, as well as just potential topics that could be covered during that meeting, and just a format that might, promote more interactiveness between the participants. And then also we'll discuss about the possibility of holding a pre-meeting session, the length of the meeting. And we'll also just talk about some topics that may be discussed during a special meeting or a webinar. And then also just any general topics that you guys may want to discuss. So Jennifer is actually going to lead the discussion. So I'm going to hand the floor over to Jennifer now.
Thanks, Cordell. And before we move to this, I just wanted to mention that Heidi's kind of taken over the role as the contact point for all the regional groups. So she's kind of the primary, all the regional group heads, she's your primary contact, and we'll be providing kind of that interface with the Secretariat. And as Mitch said, the regional groups really are for the region, of the region, by the region, but with whatever support the Secretariat can provide. So all of the things that were mentioned are actually very exciting. Everyone's at a different place, but whatever help the Secretariat can provide, we will. So, so moving to the annual meeting, which it has over the past umpteen years, we've always met in the fall, and the plan is to still do that. But we really do want to draw a wider net on proposed agenda items to cover in that meeting. And we so far have gotten some suggestions. Some came out of the last meeting, some have kind of come up over time. And I'll just go over those real briefly. This is not, this is not to limit what we might do at the annual meeting, but just to start the conversation. So the issues around data disaggregation, SDGs, and also issues around data analysis always come up. But the Secretariat is very unsure exactly what the members would like covered in this area at an annual meeting. We have had multiple presentations on the analytic guidelines, the last of which was on the severity measures and the codes, which are complete and have been posted. So we've done a lot around that area, and we are continuing to do some more in terms of trying to think through whether we want to have some joint publications, for example, that template that Julie proposed in our beginning of our conversation about age adjustment. So I think these are excellent topics for the annual meeting, but I think the Secretariat at least is a little unsure about what would be of most interest in how to organize these sessions. And we want to provide as much input to the steering committee as we can as we develop the agenda for a fall meeting, which we really do start doing in the summer. So I should also say that any can not only suggest a topic, but they can also organize the topic and kind of take control over it and get speakers. And so we really are not only open to different topics, but different people wanting to take ownership of that topic and then present it at the annual meeting. So that's one area where happily we can do this at the annual meeting. We just need guidance about what to do, because I think without that guidance, there will not be much on this topic. The other more generic topic is creating a disability survey or module. Over the past several years, we have gotten requests from countries and from other partners who are interested in doing a disability survey. Most of our work has been around just doing the disability classification questions that are added to ongoing surveys. That's been the majority of it. And then doing these independent modules that can also be added to other surveys. So the inclusive education and the labor force and so on. But we have not talked about doing an entire disability survey, which is a heavy lift. And probably there is no one standard survey that would meet every country's need. But one could talk about this at the next meeting, perhaps set up a work group to kind of think through what of the modules we have already created would go into such a survey, what else would be needed, what's missing. Or is this just not something that we think the Washington group wants to pursue, that we would really are better off dealing with very specific things. So that's one area. And then the third is very focused on COVID-19 related disability data collection. We did have a webinar on that. There's probably many other things that could be done in terms of COVID-19 at the October, November meeting. So we would want to flesh out what those topics might be. So those are the topics we have so far, but we can do none of these, all of these were completely different ones, whatever is the thought of the group. Then there's the issue of format, and we've heard often that people would like these meetings to be more interactive, and we are very open. The Secretary is extremely open to how to do that, but again, not exactly sure how best to do it in this virtual setting. And so we would really like to have input on that. Ways you have done it that have been successful. We've talked about breakouts, but we weren't quite sure what would be accomplished in those breakouts. So we would like input on this. And if a group of you are interested in getting together to come up with some interesting, innovative ways to do it, we'd be very happy to do that. Cordell mentioned the idea of whether or not we should have a pre-meeting session when we meet in person. Remember, the first day always included like a welcome for new members and then kind of a more basic introduction to the Washington group and the products. We didn't do that last time. We could do it in the next one, maybe not. We don't need to have it attached to the meeting. It could be before it, the week before, or some other, but we would want input on whether or not we should have a pre-meeting session. The next thing is just how long you want the meeting to be. Generally, we met for 3 days, almost 3 full days when we met in person. That I think is hard to do virtually. We could do a couple of hours, 3 hours over 3 days, 3 hours over 2 days. And then there's the issue of whether we want to continue trying to split these into 2 sessions so that everyone can come, or we should really try to focus on having one meeting, even if for some of us it will mean doing it in an unpleasant time. So we'd really like to get input on length and structure. And then finally, we have come up with some dates where we could have a 3-day meeting or a 2-day meeting in October and November, October 18 to 20 or November 8 to 10. And we would just want to know whether these dates are bad for many people for reasons that we weren't aware of. And there are some other options, but we wanted to put 2 on the table. So we're getting very, unfortunately, close to our end time. I think, you know, we can stay on a little bit longer if people want to. So I'm going to open it up to any chat, anything in the chat, or any questions that people have or comments they want to make. As we did after the last meeting, we sent out an email with these questions to all the members requesting that you reply to us. I have to say we don't get a huge amount of replies. That makes us feel really, really bad. I mean, it's very sad for us when nobody answers our emails, I have to tell you. So we will do it again. We will put these questions out to the whole membership, but please, please respond. There's lots of questions. You don't have to respond to all of them. You can respond to some of them. But we really do want input on how to organize the annual meeting next fall. So let me open it up. Raise your hand, put things in the chat, however you would like to give your opinions on these issues.
Hey, Jennifer, so there's one comment in the chat. It's from our colleagues in Moldova, and they support the proposed topics, especially the SDG disaggregation. And they said, for example, 16.7.1, we need more guidance on how to apply the Washington Group set of questions in such administrative data sources as Parliament and courts.
Okay, great, thank you. That's the kind of input we need. So, you know, keep those coming in terms of what it is you would like to hear.
And Rajan just added that he will respond, that they will respond to your email.
Thank you, Rajan. I appreciate that. And again, reinforce that if anybody has a topic they want to take control over and do the presentation or get, so it's done exactly the way you want it done, that's also wonderful.
Okay, we have a hand raised from Robert. So Robert, I'm going to pass the floor to you.
Thank you, Cordell. Mine is just to mention that perhaps we could also include a topic on the best approach on administrative data collection, because that is one area that people feel we needed to have some guidance on.
Okay, we can do that. I think there's some members who have recently been involved in thinking about administrative data, so we will reach out to them in terms of creating that kind of session. I think there's some interesting things going on in the area of not only administrative data, but harmonizing administrative and survey data. So that, and that might be a good topic, and get others involved who are working on that if they're willing. That would be great. Thank you, Robert, for the suggestion.
Okay, and there's a comment in the chat from Isabella. And in terms of the structure, consider spreading it over 4 days with 4-hour sessions per day. We have found that in the virtual world, people are so busy that it helps them to balance normal work and meetings. Normal work and meetings like this if the meeting does not take the whole day. Okay.
So shorter per day. And do you think, I don't want me to put you on the spot, Isabel, but is like a total of 9 hours spread over days sufficient? Do you think we need to kind of replicate what we would have done in person, which is much longer. And also, is 4 hours the right chunk? Which is 2 hours better, 3 hours? What do you think about in terms of how long? I agree with you. I think it's easier to spread it out. Just how long do you think the chunks should be? And anyone who has thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know, I think that we cannot replicate what we do in real life virtually. So I don't think that we should aim to have the same heaviness of program that we would have had if it was in person. We've actually found at UN Women, when we do training, maximum of 2 hours per day. And so we would opt for 2 times 6 days, 2 hours over 6 days, which gives you 12 hours, for example, for a training, just to get, you know, to help people focus as well, because it's actually difficult to just virtually focus on meetings. And secondly, also to enable people to attend, because I'm absolutely shocked really at how people's workloads have increased generally across the board. National Statistical Offices under a lot of pressure, you know, and to get them away from their desk for a whole day is very difficult. So I think we need to maybe just get input from more people. Maybe when you send the questions around, people can vote of what kind of format will suit them best. But yeah.
Okay, good. Points well taken. Thank you.
Okay, so there's a comment from Elena, and she says that the pre-meeting can be always useful for new people. It can be organized a few days before so that people can attend and also check for more information on the website. And Rajan provided a comment saying that he prefers Fridays and Saturdays for these types of meetings. There's a comment from Margate that says maybe ask or allocate or invite people from the different regions to take on specific topics and plan the related session together along with the Washington Group Secretariat.
Good.
Naona mtu analia ati since COVID set in, there's
Thank you, Robert. And so then there's another comment from our colleagues in Singapore. And just for clarification, they would like to know, are there any guidelines in explaining to respondents the difference between some difficulty and a lot of difficulty when using the Washington Group questions?
We can arrange a session around that. There is, just briefly, there is something in the implementation guidelines that we can send you about how one might explain it, but we could talk about that some more if that's turning into a problem. That's a good thing to put on the list.
Okay, and then we have 2 hand raised. So we have Nicholas and Rami. So Nicholas, you can go first and then we'll follow up with Rami.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Jennifer. I have two comments only. The first one is about the way of participation, maybe the way of vote. Maybe there's a chance to use, I don't know, some applications, some online applications to get more answers. I mean, like Google Forms or Google document, so the responses are more, and maybe we can get a more feedback doing that way. That's only a proposal. Also, we were discussing here in the chat with my colleagues from INDEC that we will like, we are proposing it to our regional group also, to try to move forward in the use of administrative records to measure and to use it for statistics, disability statistics. So if you have, or if any country here has experience in that matter that could be shared, we will very appreciate. That's all. Thank you.
If anyone is, good at these other platforms that Nicholas mentioned, could you please let us know. I mean, I'm probably the least familiar with any of this and least good at it. I'm sure my colleagues are better. But if you have something that has worked for you that you think would work for us, if you could just let us know what it is and maybe we can have a short conversation about how to use it, that would also be appreciated. We may be calling you Nicholas.
No problem, no problem. We can do a short call and try to share about this.
So just related to that, there is a comment in the chat from Margie that says there are a range of programs that can be used to get more involvement. And she says, I don't know much about these, but others may. And she provides the name of a program called Mural. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that as well, but as Jennifer said, that if anyone's familiar with programs like these, you can send them to us or get in contact with the Secretariat, and just we can kind of look them up, as well as kind of provide us guidance on how they're used. So as I mentioned before, there was one more hand raised, and it's from Rami. Rami, do you want to ask your question? Well, while we're waiting for Rami, there's another. Okay,
there he
Rami. Yeah.
I was talking with it's muted. I'm sorry. I'll repeat what I'm said. I have a comment, and I also have addition for the annual report. Maybe it will be a presentation or session. I don't know. First, the comment back to my presentation about the building capacity. Yeah, we are working with in the Arab region with the ISQA and also under the umbrella of ISQA to build capacity. And this is a future thing we will do next year, this year, and maybe next year. And we wish and we hope that this COVID will end and we can meet again and do the workshops and meetings and maybe training. Not virtually as already done during the last 2 years. For my addition, and it's all the question, what is Washington Group? This is a question we have faced in some Arab country, and I will give it to you because a lot of countries, maybe not in Arab, maybe in the whole world, asking why I have to use Washington Group while I have my question. This question is repeated a lot of times, and we have the answer, but maybe Washington Group should have also another answer, or distribute the answer for the whole world, why they have to use Washington Group, why not using only their question, and what's the difference from their questions and the national questions of the countries and the Washington Group. What is the disability figures again from the Washington Group, and what's different from their own questionnaire? I know it's a very old question and should be years ago, but it's still, we have still facing in the Arab country, and maybe I know maybe you face it in other countries also, the whole world. Maybe you have to add some addition session on this to answer why country have to use Washington Group, a question, whatever it's short or extended. Thank you.
Rami, do you see that as something that should be a publication of some kind, a frequently asked question, or a blog, or a document?
From my point of view, in the annual meeting will not be the correct place for answering this question, because the whole person or the persons who are coming to Washington Group meeting, or even here, they know why Washington Group, but the countries are not attending this Washington Group meetings. They are not understand. So maybe the website will be the place maybe emails for the NCO and SO of the countries. It could be a short notes why we have to use Washington Group and why we encourage countries to use Washington Group, especially the short question. Maybe just to convince them to, because it's comparable for the other countries. Maybe, you understand what's this meaning.
Yeah.
I am
So
just
you would like
saying what in my mind
a
about
short
this issue.
document? I'm sorry. Good.
No, I'm saying I am just thinking in loud voice about this question, and we already face it.
Okay, so we can talk about it, but I think what you're asking for is some kind of document that you could share if somebody asks you this question, or you can point them to the website. So some succinct discussion of why this is a good idea.
It should be in a simple words and a simple meaning to let them understand, because not all understand this issue. Exactly the issue of using Washington Group.
Jennifer, I'm sorry, if I may just add that there is a document called the Primer, which is an introduction to the Washington Group, and it does address some of the issues that you are raising, Rami, and it's a brief document, and it is available in Arabic on the website. So following this meeting, if it's useful to you, I can send you that link. So you have that, which may address some of the points you're raising.
Perfect. And it should be from Washington Group itself.
Yep.
Not from me or others, because they have to understand this is the Washington Group questions, not Arab countries question, not Casablanca question. It should be, this is the official statement from the Washington Group that define why you have to use Washington Group and why not using, maybe they can add the question, and to add the question from their national needs to the questionnaire, but using Washington Group, this is the issue.
Okay. Thank you.
So there's another comment in the chat from Desiree in Aruba, and so she says, I would like to propose to include the topic of how to better project the prevalence of disability into the future, alongside population projections. As the population of many countries is aging, the prevalence of disability is an important factor to take into account, given the impact it has on important areas, including the organization and provision of adequate care and support.
All right, we will put that on the list. Projections are very interesting, scary to do, since there's a lot of unknowns, but if this is of interest, we put on the list, and I think we could organize a session about what are the issues one needs to consider in doing a projection and how one might do it. So that's a good suggestion. Thank you.
And Elena is proposing that we have an open webinar, and this is partly to address Rami's question comment, an open webinar about the Washington Group for people who aren't directly involved with the Washington Group.
Okay, thank you, Elena.
And then there's a question that it was sent actually to me, but I'm going to read it in the forum, and it's from our colleagues in Egypt, and it's about the seeing question. And so it says, if a person has difficulty seeing but does not have glasses, is he considered as a disabled person or must be asked a question even when wearing glasses?
If someone doesn't wear glasses, then if they cannot see, then yes, they would be considered to have a disability. And if you look at the extended set, we where we had more space, we broke out the glasses question. So you could ask if someone wore glasses, how do you see with them? And how do you, if you don't, and just how do you see? In the census, that wasn't possible. So if someone is not wearing glasses, then they should just disregard that phrase about even when wearing glasses, because they're not wearing them. But it, you know, would be better to ask the fuller set if you can, if you have the space. That it just makes it easier and clearer for people.
I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat or any other hand raised right now.
All right, well, we've gotten some good feedback, so thank you for that. And as I said, at the end of when the meetings are over and we have a little time, we'll send something out to all the members with all the documentation, which will also go on the web, but we can also send it whatever we can as attachments. And we'll send out a list of these topics and questions primarily around the 2021 annual meeting. And again, please respond. Maybe we'll have some open-ended, you know, what do you want to add? And maybe some that are more kind of what Isabel was suggesting. You know, do you want 2 days, 3 days? How many hours per day? You can kind of weigh in on what you would like the structure to be, whether we should have a pre-meeting, which certainly could be before, it doesn't have to be at the same time, and the dates. And then rely on those of you who have had the experience to help us with making this more interactive for that meeting. So any of these other techniques or things that are available that we're not familiar with that we could use. The other thing would be is that we can start on this relatively early. We may be able to do something before the meeting to get some more feedback. So we have some questions out there that people might be prepared to talk about, and maybe do some kind of discussions, breakout groups, depending on how it goes. So anyone who would like to be involved in helping the Secretariat and Steering Committee come up with the agenda, please let us know as well, because we would welcome some more help on this. We really want to make the meeting as helpful, useful, and pleasant as we can. And as nice as having the virtual capability is, it's just not quite the same as being together. I think we do a better job on the in-person than we've been doing on the virtual, but we'd like to improve. So I think we're almost close to time. I want to thank everybody for their participation, the presenters for sharing the important work they're doing in their work groups and the regional groups, and encourage people to get involved so that work can move forward. And all of the good feedback that we've gotten. I think this has been really very useful, and we hope to see you again virtually, perhaps at some kind of webinar between now and the fall, and then at the annual meeting. And then hopefully in person, maybe sometime in early 2022 in Mombasa would be great, would be lovely. So I think if no one else from the Secretariat, if you have any other comments or anything, I think we can close the meeting.
No comments here. It was nice to hear and see everyone.
Okay. All right, so we will be in touch, and please remember, answer our emails, because otherwise we feel like you don't like us anymore, and it gets very sad. So all right, everyone, have a nice day, afternoon, evening, night, wherever you are. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Pleasure.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Jennifer.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, bye.